We've all been afraid at one time or another. Ever since we were kids, our fears have been molded by our experiences. Some kids grew up afraid of the dark, or clowns, or any number of other things that we saw as dangers to our continued existence. As we got older, we watched horror films, rode roller coasters, and otherwise found outlets for healthy, fun fear. We learned that fear was natural, and that it alone couldn't hurt us. We learned to face our fears and overcome our silly superstitions. But what if we didn't? What if instead of facing our fear, we let it consume us? Is it possible to be scared to death? (1991). Christopher Case was, by all accounts, a normal guy. An accomplished DJ in his hometown in Virginia, he had since moved to Seattle, where he worked for a company that made elevator music. He was a healthy 35-year-old who took vitamins, supplements, and worked out on a regular basis. He traveled occasionally for work, and that's how he ended up in San Francisco on the 11th of April, 1991. There, he struck up conversation with an older woman who shared his interest in ancient musical compositions. The night wore on, and they continued chatting. The woman finally made the first move and asked Christopher to come back to her place. He politely declined, and according to second-hand sources, she became incensed. She told Christopher that she was a witch and that he would be cursed to die by the end of the week. It is of note that this story was relayed by one of Christopher's friends. Christopher didn't believe in any of that nonsense and went back home and continued his life. It is, once again, of note that everything that Christopher experienced from this point on is alleged. After his death, Christopher's friend would provide this accounting of his time post-San Francisco. This friend, a self-professed psychic, is the only person who purportedly knows the details of Christopher's life from April 11th to April 18th. The only thing I can say for certain is that Christopher took a trip to San Francisco, and that by April 18th, he was dead. Christopher called his friend and explained that he had been experiencing shadows moving around his apartment, strange whispering, and odd dreams. He was allegedly frantic, suddenly more worried about the curse than he had originally let on. A local bookstore manager reported that Christopher had come in and bought books about witchcraft and the occult, along with a handful of crucifixes. I'm not sure why the bookstore was selling crucifixes, but maybe it was a special kind of bookstore. The calls to his friend continued, where he allegedly relayed that he had woke up being strangled by an unseen presence, and that he was waking up with strange cuts on his hands. During this time, no one else saw Christopher. His friend was back in Christopher's hometown in Virginia, and this was 1991. Cell phones were not widespread, and you couldn't just shoot a text to make sure everything was all right. On April 16th, Christopher allegedly stayed overnight at a hotel. The 17th of April was the last time his friend would hear from him. He left a message stating that he was going to die. In a panic, his friend notified Seattle police. On April 18th, they entered Christopher's apartment. Allegedly, the space was filled with crucifixes and candles, Salt lines were drawn in front of each doorway. Christopher was in his bathtub, fully clothed, kneeling, head against the wall, dead. An autopsy would later show that Christopher had died of myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart. Some say this was the curse running its course, finishing Christopher as intended. Others think that Christopher, in his deteriorated mental state, simply died of fright. They believe he had worked himself up so much that his heart couldn't take it, and he died hiding from imagined monsters in his bathtub. Myocarditis is interesting in that it can present with feelings of imminent doom and some mental symptoms. But what do you think? Was Christopher Case's end a sad tale about a man hundreds of miles from his friends and family, suffering from the onset of a serious medical condition? Or was he instead suffering from the effects of some dark curse put on him by a vengeful witch? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter @DreadUnsolved. I'm also on Facebook. If you enjoy this content, consider dropping a like and a subscribe. Thanks for watching.